Hi everyone, my name is Mav. Welcome to the channel. We're going to be having a pretty tough conversation today. So I want to start off this conversation with a trigger warning. I will be talking about suicidal ideation in this video. So if that's something that you can't handle right now, I'd recommend you watch with caution or skip to the next one. I appreciate you being here and listening to my story today. Um, so I was inspired to make this video because I found this. It's an old journal of mine, and it's not super old. Some of the entries I'm going to be reading are from like 2016, so that's like what, wow, math, 7 years ago or something like that. So yeah, I'm going to be reading a little bit of some of what I was experiencing when I was like starting to realize that I think I started to realize that some of what I was doing was like unsustainable. I also talk a lot about some crappy beliefs that I had about my sexuality and stuff like that. Um, but we'll get into all of that as I tell this story. So if you're here, definitely share comments. I definitely want to engage with folks as we're having this conversation. If you're watching the replay, same with that as well. Just check out the ticker that's coming down on below the channel if you want to know where to find me or some other action things. I just kind of want to get into the content today. With my channel being about spiritual and religious harm, it's really important for me to talk about some of the feelings that I had when I first made the decision to like stray from Christianity, is specifically the really rigid beliefs and practices. I was raised to believe that being a queer non-binary person was inherently sinful. And so when I found myself experiencing like gay thoughts and same-sex attraction and things like that, um, I realized that I couldn't really accept that part of me. The same thing goes for my masculinity. I was also very strongly discouraged from embracing my masculinity or presenting in a masculine way. That was really harmful to my psyche developing. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the ways that I felt about myself being masculine in this story as well. I also had a lot of harmful ideas about like what makes a person gay. Um, I honestly used to believe that I was more masculine and that I liked women because my older brother, when we were younger, he probably had a lot of issues. He was pretty volatile as a person, and that did kind of turn to some like physical abuse and maybe a lot of I would say excessive teasing, not like playful sibling teasing. Like stuff got pretty mean and aggressive, and so I really didn't feel very safe around men. So I thought that was the reason why I was gay. And you might think like, there's no way. There's no way that Christians are that uneducated about sexuality, but they really are. I want to show you what I mean. I'm going to show you right now a clip of a man. His name is David Martin, um, and he is preaching the exact message that I had embodied. So I'm going to play that for you now and give a little bit of commentary afterwards. This is a short clip.
Constantly. What causes lust is oftentimes just our personal experience, our story. Some of you were sexually abused as a child, and it wasn't your fault, and you've struggled with same-sex attraction ever since. You were exposed to pornography, and that led you on a path where your friend just showed it to you one night on a sleepover, and you began to look at it and look at it and look at it, and you have never gone a day since, or very few days, without seeing it. Just our experience in life fuels and can feed and cause this.
So, very literally just said it. Our experience can cause our lust. So, I grew up believing that like I wasn't there wasn't any SA that was going on at the time for me. But I still had that line of thinking that if bad stuff happens to you or something like that, that's kind of what makes a person gay, or trans, or have sexual differences or something like that. I didn't understand that like these are natural things that happen within humans. I thought that there had to be something wrong for a person to have these types of feelings. These are very common beliefs, and I still have a ton of like internalized homophobia and transphobia about my experience. I have these concerns that I'll one day discover that when I forgot, but like when I was in third grade, something happened, and that's the real reason why I'm trans, or that's the real reason why I'm gay. Like these are just like pretty effed up ways of thinking. Um, yeah, but I embodied it and I believed it, and it informed the way that I lived my life. And that was pretty upsetting. So I'm going to read um, maybe like this is like a half a page entry or so here, and I wanted to show this drawing that I had, this like fist balled up. I was just so angry these days. And I wrote all around the fist. Yeah, this apparently seemed like a bad day. So this is December of 2016. Okay, so um, alrighty. Let me see where I'm starting. Okay, so everything is stupid. I'm starting to read now. Okay, everything is stupid. I hate myself, and not for my looks, which used to be the reason, but because of how I feel. I hate being bi. I want to be normal, but I'm not. I never will. Having a boyfriend didn't fix it. And it's all my brother's fault. If he never abused me, I would have liked boys more, and I would not be a tomboy, and I could be feminine and girly and boys would like me. I bet all guys think I'm gay. I mean, why wouldn't they? I dress like a tomboy. I don't know why. I'm just so disturbed by my own thoughts and I want it to go away. Um, End quote. That was depressing to read. It was really sad. Um, yeah, it was sad for me to remember how it felt back then. Obviously, my self concept has developed, and I accept myself as a non-binary person. Um, but clearly, I was very much struggling with the person that I was, and the person that I thought that I was, I was forced to be, or something like that. Yeah, it really obviously messed with my mind. um, so yeah, it's really devastating for me to read how much I really hated my masculinity. I hated that part of myself. Um, and there were a ton of messages that I had growing up. Like there was one time where I wanted to learn how to play the drums, but my mom told me that I was too masculine and I couldn't do it. Um, so I didn't learn to do that. There's so many times where I had things that I just wanted to do, but for a variety of reasons, I just didn't let myself do them because of these made up rules. But yeah, I think I mentioned earlier that this still kind of shows up with my internalized transphobia that I deal with. It's tough to accept yourself when, for the majority of your life, you've been told that these things are unacceptable. An abomination to the creator of the universe. That's a heavy burden for a kid to carry. I was just a kid, at this time, and yeah, it's wild. But I realized that all I wanted was to belong in the world, and at the time, Christianity was the closest I got to acceptance. Um, but in order for me to belong in that community, I had to deny so many vital parts of myself. Um, and Yeah, it's just like really raw, guys. It's so hard. Like I had to deny so many parts of me just so that I could feel accepted. And it's like it's a false sense of acceptance. I grew up with this belief that if people really knew who I was, they wouldn't love me. And if they really knew who I was, they would leave me. And I'll probably get into this more in the future. Like those fears came true, you know. People found out who I was and they ran away. Um, so I never really did belong in that community, you know. These things really, really suck. But yeah, the point that I'm trying to get across here is that long-term self-denial is deadly, y'all. Um, in another entry, I'm not going to read it here, but I mentioned that I was experiencing a lot of suicidal ideation while I was driving to classes, and it's depressing to know how in pain I was at the time. And yeah, it really is sad to me that there are a ton of queers who are in churches right now who still have to deal with this nonsense for no reason. I felt like I was kind of just like stuck hating myself for such a long time. I was confused and angry and frustrated. And at the time, you know, God was kind of the person who's holding everything together. And I feel sad that I held on to this kind of like imaginary deity for so long. You know, I was really desperate for help and support, and I didn't get any of it. I'm going to read this journal entry. Once again, this is pretty rough, raw stuff. So I don't have timestamps or anything here. Just want to let you know that some of this stuff is pretty deep. So apparently I was journaling about Psalm 25 verse 16, which says, turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted." And then I write, "Yet you do nothing. You say you'll help me and comfort me, and yet I lie in agony. Why? I don't understand why it's so bad. I feel like I'm losing control of myself, and you're supposed to be my firm foundation. Maybe I don't know what that means because I really don't feel very safe and secure. You say you are my refuge and strength, a present help in times of trouble, though troubles come and I shouldn't fear, but you're not helping. I feel like I'm getting worse. Why won't you just relieve a little bit of pain? I'm so afraid. And if trouble comes my way, I feel like I'll be crushed. I feel like I have no refuge and that I'm fully exposed in this storm I'm in. I want to believe that you'll be here for me, but I feel like you've let me down. You've let me drown. I'm trying to keep my head above water, and what are you doing? Just watching me suffer? What am I doing wrong? If you would just help me, then I wouldn't want to hurt myself so badly. I know you are good, but you're not being very good to me right now." End quote. Suicidal ideation is a really serious concern, and it's something that I dealt with quite a bit in that faith, and something that still comes up. You know, like these things are important to talk about. But in this situation, I really desperately, you know, needed support from this deity, right? And wasn't getting what I needed. Um, at the time, I really think that I was listening to a lot of Hamilton, and there's a quote in one of the songs. I think it's the song is like "The Eye of the Hurricane" or something like that. And he says, "When my prayers to God were met with indifference, I picked up a pen, I wrote my own deliverance." And those words really spoke to me, and I realized that I had to do something different. Um, I was really at the end of my rope at that time. um, yeah, I was realizing that fighting against myself was really a losing battle, and I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to lose. I wanted to make it. I wanted to survive, and so I did something radical. I decided that things had to change, And part of my religious deconstruction was rebelling against the faith practices that I held on to for so long. So I grabbed my phone and I downloaded Tinder. um, I remember a couple of days before I did that, I um, was sitting in the parking lot of my college at school and was like just crying and realizing that I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't pretend anymore. I was gonna something was gonna have to give. Um, and the rigidity was what I decided to let go of. Um, and I downloaded Tinder. I set my settings to women, and I started swiping. And it was a really liberating feeling. It was scary, but by the summer, so like I said, this was the end of 2016, and so by the summer or May or something of 2016, I was like falling in love with Amanda, who happens to be my wife. She was the first person that I met and connected with on Tinder, and we're married. So um, I'm so grateful that I took up the courage to take that step, and rebel against my faith and my beliefs and things like that. But it really was scary. It was scary to do this. When I I was fully convinced, y'all, that I was just gonna try women for a little bit and then like get it out of my system so that I could just like, you know, survive the rest of my life. But it stuck. And it was crappy. I realized like I can't do this anymore. I was in a leadership position at my church at the time. I was a youth leader. Um, and you know, a lot of people looked up to me. And if I had come out at my church, I would have lost, pretty much everything. So I left. I just said, "Hey, I'm stepping down," and I left. I went to a different church. I like to bring up Tabernacle United in Philly. It was such a great church, really awesome experience, really affirming church, and that was a good space where I did a lot of my own self discovery, and then eventually left Christianity altogether. But this was where the journey began. Um, Me really being at the end of my rope, understanding that like something really desperately had to change in order for me to live the life that I really needed to. Um, yeah, it's upsetting and frustrating, but I'm glad that I'm here where I am right now. I do want to check and see, just like comment on some of the comments that I received during this time, and have that right now. So many people were viciously misinformed. All of these unevolved people don't realize how abusive they are. And that definitely is true. I think that a lot of times I know that I preached these messages. I was a youth leader. I was pretty big in terms of like teaching and stuff. And I did a lot of this. I perpetuated a lot of this harmful stuff. And I didn't know. I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't want to hurt people. I wanted people to be happy. And I thought that you know, not being gay was, I don't know, true happiness because Jesus was true happiness, right? And even in the clip of that video that I showed earlier, that guy, I'm sure he thinks that he's doing the right thing. I'm sure he thinks that he's helping people, but they're not. This is why sex ed is important, friends. Um, and then we have Charlie says that I identify with you feeling that if friends and family knew the real me, they would hate me as much as I hated myself. And that was probably one of the hardest. Um, that was probably one of the hardest things to like live with growing up. This like nagging fear. It's very scary. Like nowhere feels safe. Um, you barely feel safe with yourself. It really is awful, and yeah, it's a scary feeling, and I'm sure a lot of you who have been closeted in these faiths have probably had similar fears or similar experiences. And then we have sad that people were so falsely identified as friends and family since they didn't meet the criterion by any stretch. True. I think, yeah, not understanding what it really means to be a friend. I don't think people know what that means, um, especially the friends that I had earlier. And I will be completely honest, y'all. This is a blanket statement, like I am overgeneralizing, but Christians typically don't make good friends to non-Christians, especially devout ones. um, I, as a devout Christian, didn't want really much to do with non-Christians. We were trained to not want much to do with non-Christians. um, I know my wife told me a story about how she had a friend, someone who she really enjoyed hanging out with, and when that friend, like found out that like she was gay and that friend was a Christian, like she just like slowly started like petering out of her life, because oftentimes like if they can't convert you, or if they are uncomfortable with your lifestyle, like they're not going to stick around very long. And yeah, I really ended up feeling like a crappy person for a long time, because I lost a lot of people when I accepted myself. So it really does falsely communicate that, accepting yourself means that people are going to leave you. Um, which actually, now that I say that out loud, it does happen probably regardless of, um, the people who you surround yourself with, because if you are identified with a false self, and you have, created relationships that are surrounding that false self, those things they're not gonna be able to survive very long. Um, yeah, sorry, I just like lost a piece of my glasses. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to come out here and share today. I appreciate you being here and, listening to my story here. This was tough to talk about, for sure, but I think that this is a important story. Yeah, these are important things that need to be shared. So if this was helpful to you, please share it with a friend, and please subscribe, like, and all of the wonderful things. Thank you for being supportive, as followers, and I hope to engage with you in the future. I will see you next time.